This is bad. My mom had an accident. I got a call out of the blue from my husband. It seems he stopped by his parents' house last week to pick up a suit jacket he left behind, and that's when his mother had an accident and passed away.
What? What happened?
She fell from the second floor.
What? Why?
She was trying to retrieve some laundry that got caught on the roof and slipped, falling off the balcony. Did you witness it? Yes, I tried to rush over to help, but I couldn't make it in time. She fell headfirst and it was instant. The voice over the phone was mixed with various noises, indicating the scene was chaotic. Ambulances and police must have been called and were handling the situation. From the condition of the scene and my husband's testimony, his mother was processed as having died from an accident, and the matter was settled as an accidental death at the time. I can't believe that she would have such an accident. I couldn't hide my shock at the sudden accident. My mother-in-law was delighted to have a daughter-in-law even if by marriage, and she doted on her granddaughter, loving her deeply. She was keen on keeping up with the latest trends. We always enjoyed talking about it. Even she was 73 years old, she was adept at using her smartphone. We would often communicate via text. She was someone who would consult me about anything.
Why? Just when I lost mother to cancer, and then she passed away too? It's too soon. I thought of her as another mother and cherished her.
The feelings I had were crushed at that moment. I was incredibly sad, but I couldn't just cry. My husband was the chief mourner, and I had to help with the funeral arrangements. Somehow, I managed to finish preparing for the funeral, and my mother-in-law's funeral was concluded without issue. Hey Julie, I've been looking since the funeral arrangements, but I can't find Mom's smartphone anywhere. Do you know where it might be? No way. Her smartphone is missing? Yeah, I've looked everywhere and can't find it, and even when I call it, it rings, but I can't hear it in the house or the yard, so I can only think it's lost somewhere. When my husband said this while we were sorting through my mother-in-law's estate, I felt a bit of unease. Until the day before my mother-in-law had her accident, I was exchanging messages with her. Therefore, she must have had her smartphone with her at that time. So, I couldn't help but think that her smartphone wasn't lost but stolen. No way. I mean, I was just messaging her until the day before. It feels more like it was stolen than lost. This is a mess. We can't even cancel Mom's phone plan now. My husband said in a panic. But I sensed his urgency wasn't just about canceling the phone. Whether it was the rush to sort through things or something else, I couldn't tell. But I soon found out why. I received an email from my missing mother-in-law's phone. Normally, we would use Message app, so I thought the sender must be someone else. Moreover, the subject line read, "Please look at this," without Sean finding out, so I lied to Sean saying I was going to the bathroom and checked the email there. Is this email really from her? At first, I doubted it, but it seemed to be indeed from her. Reading the message left me speechless, and the attached photos and videos drained the color from my face. There was undeniable evidence of Sean's outrageous actions. With that evidence, the death of my mother-in-law was determined to be murder and Sean was arrested that day. My name is Julie, a 38-year-old with a 5-year-old daughter. Though we have a decent amount of savings, I like to spend money on my hobbies like photography and traveling, so I work part-time while managing the household chores. Sean and I met when a friend invited me to a bar and we soon hit it off. 3 years later, we got married. Sean has been working as an employee, had been saving money diligently even when he was single, and seemed to manage his finances well. His saving habits, apparently inherited from his mother, meant he was always careful with money. However, he enjoyed gambling, spending weekends at horse races or casino. Despite occasionally splurging, Sean knew we couldn't live without a safety net and never touched our savings. I think it's amazing how Sean can manage money so well, even though he gambles. It's good, especially with a child on the way, that you can handle finances like this. I hate the idea of living paycheck to paycheck. We have to be careful with these things. While working and indulging in his gambling hobby, Sean, and I also want to spend on my interests but also make sure to save. Maybe it's our compatible natures, but our marriage has felt comfortably easy. Tomorrow's Saturday, would it be alright if I go out for casino? Sean often goes to casino on his days off, but he does make time for family. So, I thought, he's doing a good job being a dad. However, I was shocked when I accidentally heard from a friend about the trick behind the money Sean spends on gambling. By the way, about a month ago I lent Sean $200. Do you know when he'll pay me back? What? You lent him $200? What for? Seems like he lost big at casino and didn't have money to play, so he asked to borrow from me. At that time, I thought he really ran out of money and had to borrow from a friend. But when I got home and confronted Sean about it, the answer I got was astonishing. Oh, that $200? I'll pay it back when I have the money.
When you have the money. Sean, you have savings. Just pay from there. That's different. Savings are for saving, not for gambling. I keep a separate stash for gambling, and if it runs out, I borrow from friends and pay them back once I win. That's my way of gambling.
To me, who doesn't gamble, I wondered if that was a normal way to enjoy gambling. But it seemed like an unbelievable way to gamble. Isn't that wrong? You may be paying it back, but doesn't something seem off? Not really, it's pretty normal, isn't it? I don't know about others' gambling habits, but that sounds like you're just making debts. I think it's different. And it looks like you haven't paid back the money you borrowed this time. I've been on a losing streak lately, can't seem to win it back. Wait, so are there others you've borrowed money from? Oh. Yeah, around 4 or 5 people, I guess. Sean casually mentioned it. It wasn't just one person. There were others he borrowed money from. How could he do such a thing? Moreover, it seems he's borrowed about $200 to $400 from each person, and hasn't been able to pay back for almost a month, meaning he's in about $1,000 of debt. Yet, Sean had a nonchalant look on his face. Don't just stand there looking unconcerned, you really should pay it back. $1,000 is too much. It's usual for me. Some people forget they lent me, and I don't pay them back. Those who nag, I pay them back. Wait a minute, what's that? So, you're saying you've never paid back people who didn't ask for their money back? Yeah, there are a few. It's fine, they haven't said anything. I was appalled by my husband's statement. Not asking for their money back meant they had given up on getting it back and decided never to lend Sean money again. This meant, in parallel with the money spent on gambling so far, there were several people he had borrowed from. How many people have you borrowed from until now? And how many have you paid back? Let's see, I started getting into gambling, so about 30 people? I've paid back about a third of them? I'm astonished. Do you remember how much you borrowed at that time? Usually around $200, that amount usually helps me break even. But you've only paid back a third, not even half. When I can, I pay back. Those who I haven't paid back, sometimes I just lose contact, you know, it's weird. At this point, I started to think maybe I married the wrong person. I had no idea he was enjoying gambling through such underhanded financial maneuvers. He was diligent about saving because he didn't want to ruin his own life. But when it comes to gambling, he'd use a bit of his own money and then enjoy his hobby with money borrowed from others. I wondered what was so fun about that. If someone asked me to lend them money, I normally wouldn't. If I did, I'd assume it's not coming back, even though I wouldn't say anything. Normally, you're supposed to pay back. It's because you lose contact. If you have savings, you should pay them back right now. I can't deal with this anxiety. It's not for you to worry about, I'll solve my own problems, so don't stress about it. Sean and I, our financial attitudes towards hobbies were too different, and the unease in my heart grew. He said he'd solve it himself, but I doubt whether he truly would. It seemed more like he thought it was too much trouble and decided to ignore it. Please do it anyway. I decided to trust my husband's words at that time, but his promise was spectacularly broken, leading to an unbelievable incident. Even after that, he never reported back about repaying his friends and continued to enjoy gambling with a carefree attitude.
I hit it big today. Look, I brought you a souvenir, your favorite cheesecake.
Occasionally, when he won at casino, he'd get carried away and bring me my favorite cheesecake or buy presents for our daughter. If that were all, you could say he was a good father, but recently, since the source of his gambling money was revealed, I've become more concerned and can't genuinely be happy about it. Hey, we've talked about this before, but it's really okay, right? I'm happy you bought cheesecake, but lately, it just doesn't taste as good.
Don't worry, it's all good.
My husband confidently asserted, but I wondered, on what basis? The more we talk, the more my anxiety grew, and I found it harder to believe his words. A few days later, when I visit my parents-in-law after a long time, the conversation turned to gambling. My mother-in-law expressed her dislike for her son's way of spending money on gambling. Sean had been borrowing money from her, too. That boy, he'll save money for living expenses, but his spending on hobbies is reckless. His father used to scold him for it, but since his father passed, he started pestering me for money. What? He's borrowing money from you too? Has he been paying you back? Rather than saying he's paying me back, whenever he visits, he brings some gifts, so he asks if that's okay, and I agree. Indeed, Sean always brought something when visiting the in-laws. I thought he was keeping his promises, but I had no idea such financial transactions were happening behind my back. Is that so? Sean mentioned his financial dealings to me, but I had no idea he was also borrowing from you. Borrowing money, even among family, shouldn't be happening. That's what my father taught me. So, I couldn't stand that Sean was doing this. Hey, I heard from your mom that you've been borrowing money from her too? You've made a deal to bring gifts as payback, but I really don't want any financial borrowing among family members. Please, can you stop doing that? What's with you all of a sudden? Can't be helped. Dad wouldn't lend me money when he was around, saying I shouldn't be borrowing within the family, getting mad about it. Now that Dad's gone and I'm free to do as I please, isn't it fine? It's not fine. I hate borrowing even among friends. I've been tolerating that, but borrowing from your mom too? That makes it even worse. Please, limit it. If you want to gamble, why not use your own money? You have enough savings, right? But I've told you, savings are different. I can't use them. Sean was stubborn in his belief. He believes that his way of managing gambling finances was the right one, and unwilling to budge from his stance. Perhaps it was this attitude that led to the amount he had borrowed over time swelling, reaching a point of no return. And then, that was the cause of an incident. This is bad, Mom had an accident. I was confused when I received that call from Sean. Just 2 days before, I had been at my in-laws' house, talking with her. It was a few days after we had been messaging, and she said, "Bring the grandkids over again." The vividness of her last words made it hard for me to grasp that she really was gone, leaving me confused. But stepping into the empty house after the funeral, the reality of her death hit me, and I couldn't help but cry. "Hey Julie, I've been looking since we started planning the funeral, but I can't find Mom's smartphone anywhere. Do you know where it might be?" My husband asked me this as we were tidying up the in-laws' house after the funeral, but we couldn't find it. If we couldn't find it, we wouldn't be able to cancel the phone service. Then, I received an email from my mother-in-law on my phone that made me almost shout to Sean that someone might have taken the phone. However, the moment I saw the email's subject, I told him to be going to the bathroom and left the room. The subject said, "Please make sure Sean doesn't find out about this," and the first line of the email stated, "If you are reading this and I am dead, it might be because of my son's doing. Please press charges." What followed was shocking. My late husband had no interest in money, had no hobbies, and never spent on himself. Even the allowance he received from me wasn't spent on cigarettes or alcohol. Instead, he saved it all in his safe. When my husband was dying, he secretly transferred the money in the safe to me, fearing that if Sean found it, it might be squandered on gambling. However, when sorting through my husband's belongings with Sean, it seems he found out about the money, and possibly the safe's combination, because I occasionally caught him sneaking money out of it. I secretly recorded these acts with my phone as evidence, but Sean found out, leading to a huge argument where he threatened, "Delete that evidence or I'll kill you." I felt truly in danger at that time. So, in case something happened to me, I left this phone with a neighbor, Smith. If I am dead, Smith might contact you. Please use this message and the evidence photos I haven't deleted yet to press charges against my son. The email contained such text and several photos of Sean trying to take money from the safe. While I was looking at that, another email came in. It was from the neighbor, Smith. I happened to witness the incident and recorded it. I've been too scared to say anything until now, but remembering Kelly's words, I checked the email and found such a message, so I thought it best to send this evidence to you, Julie. Attached with the message was a video, capturing the raw footage of the incident. Stop it already, no more taking money from the safe. It's fine, isn't it? The money Dad left behind is as much mine as it was his, it belongs to me too. Was the exchange between my mother-in-law trying to hang laundry on the balcony and my husband. My mother-in-law disgusted at him and perhaps having reached her limit, angrily grabbed at him. But my husband easily shrugged her off, pushing her against the balcony railing. Got the guts to lay hands on me, huh? Shall I kill you as I declared? My husband's demeanor changed, and he looked down on her as he spat out those words. It seemed serious, and perhaps realizing her life was in danger, my mother-in-law screamed.
No, help, please, somebody help.
Screaming in a small rural community like this, no one's gonna come to your aid.
Stop, please stop.
She pleaded desperately, but her resistance was in vain as she was pushed off the balcony. The video recorded the entire incident. Watching it drained the blood from my face. My husband had killed his mother over money from the safe. Knowing this fact, the idea that behind his smiling face could be someone capable of such ease in taking a life sent shivers down my spine. I didn't know he was such a person. I realized staying with him could put my own life in danger. I decided to take this evidence to the police and have him arrested. Stepping out of the bathroom, I said, "I'm a bit thirsty, gonna run to the convenience store," and drove off. Upon reaching the police station, I immediately showed the evidence video to the person at the reception. This is evidence of Mrs. Morgan's murder, who was recently reported dead in an accident. It was actually a crime. Please arrest my husband immediately. The tension that had been tightly wound within me until then suddenly snapped, and I collapsed, crying on the spot. The police officers around me rushed to comfort me. While I was showing the video, the officers asked me to explain the situation. After showing them the recent email, the evidence photos, the email from Smith, and the evidence video, the police officers immediately sprang into action, hopping into their police car and heading to my in-laws' house. "Excuse me, are you the son of Mrs. Morgan?" "Yes, but what's the matter?"
Evidence of your involvement in your mother's murder has been submitted. Sean Morgan, you are under arrest for the murder of Kelly Morgan. What? Why is this happening? I didn't do anything. Just come with us. Resisting will only make your charges heavier.
Afterward, my husband was taken to the police station, and upon spotting me resting at the entrance lounge, he yelled at me. "Was it you who submitted the evidence? What were you thinking?" He was incredibly aggressive, the kind face I knew was nowhere to be seen. All I could see was someone who seemed possessed by greed, glaring at me.
I thought this plan would wrap things up nicely. Your fault, my life is ruined, unbelievable.
He continued screaming at me until he was taken into the interrogation room. "You're Mr. Morgan's wife, right?" "Yes, what about it?" "We are about to show him the evidence you submitted, the emails and the video on the smartphone. Would you like to watch? Is that okay? You can watch from a separate room." We assure your safety, so please don't worry. Led by an officer, I entered next to the interrogation room where my husband, handcuffed, glared at the officers as if he was about to leap at them. Stop it. We are going to interrogate you now. We have plenty of evidence. We'll get a confession out of you.
This is ridiculous. I haven't done anything. Why am I being arrested?
You really think you can say that? Bad news, we have video evidence of you murdering your mother. Can you still say you didn't do it after watching it? As the officer spoke, another played the video on a smartphone. In the silence of the interrogation room, the loud exchange between my husband and his mother played, and watching it, my husband's eyes widened, staring intently at the video. Then he muttered under his breath, "Why was this scene recorded?" and collapsed, defeated. So, can you still claim innocence?
And you've been stealing, right? We have solid evidence of that too. Why would you do such a thing? That's cold-hearted.
Faced with undeniable evidence, my husband felt resistance was futile and began to confess. I liked gambling, and to secure money for it, I borrowed from various people. I even borrowed from my parents, and recently, when they wouldn't give me money, I just took it from the safe without permission. You knew that was the money your father left behind, right? Your mother's email said it was transferred from your father to your mother, so taking that money is the same as stealing, isn't it? The officer showed my husband the evidence on the smartphone, displaying the email. My husband, looking at it, slumped his shoulders as if drained of strength and began to speak in a low voice. Yes, I'm sorry. Apologies won't fix it now. You've committed a crime. I was desperate. A friend I borrowed money from ran out of patience with me not paying back, and it seems they got a gangster office to help squeeze money out of me this time. You reap what you sow, so. You decided to kill your mother because of this? It was accidental. I just went to take the money, but my mother found me, and in the heat of the argument, I pushed her off the balcony. I thought there were no witnesses, and if I claimed it was an accident, it wouldn't trace back to me. I figured I could use the money she had to pay off the guys collecting from me. So that's why you were desperately telling the police it was an accident at the time. Surprising truths were revealed from my husband. The fact that borrowing money led to being extorted by gangstar was something I found out then. And despite such circumstances, my husband lived a normal life without showing any signs of distress, which shocked me. Hiding something like that? Unbelievable. Though I whispered it under my breath, not intended for my husband to hear, he glared in the direction of my room. I felt scared, but an officer beside me reassured me, "You're safe with us." Then the interrogation with my husband resumed. Anyway, you've confessed to murder, concealment, and theft. That's what you're facing. Something wrong? Not satisfied? Theft is not me. Was he trying to lessen his guilt or lighten his sentence by denying at least one charge? He began insisting that theft was not, and the interrogation that seemed to be concluding started again. As I said before, the money you stole belonged to your mother. Taking that money is a crime. Especially since it was your father's legacy, that makes it even worse, doesn't it? If it was inheritance left by my father, doesn't that mean I have a right to it? Look at this email properly. The money in the safe was not given to you but transferred to your mother, it's not yours. Besides, now that money is part of your mother's estate, and you, not being the heir, can't use it. What? I am the heir, right? A person who commits murder loses their right to inherit. According to your wife, your mother had said the heir would be her granddaughter, it means your daughter. Just a few days before she passed. If something happens to me, the inheritance I have will be passed on to my grandchild. Make sure she gets to go to a good university, she had said. It's still unclear since the house hasn't been sorted out yet, but there might be documents related to the inheritance in your mother's room somewhere. My husband knew there was money at home. So, to prevent him from using it, she said she would transfer the safe's money to our daughter, creating a situation where my husband couldn't touch it. I think my mother-in-law's decision was right. But ultimately, it was over this money that she lost her life. If only I had realized that. I can only regret it now.
This is nonsense, that's my money.
Enough already.
I just say, even if it's not clear yet, that money is going to your daughter.
You have no right to use it. I cannot agree that. My husband, adamant about denying theft, was clearly not satisfied. But his words reached no one. They were like the irritating buzz of a mosquito's wings, merely swatted down by the officer's words. You get it now, give it up. I don't want to give up. Stubborn, aren't you? What do you want? I admit to the murder, it was done in the heat of the moment, and the concealment was my responsibility. But, don't pin any more crimes on me, it'll ruin my social standing. Such pitiful words. He fears that his social image will further degrade if he gets out, trying to eliminate at least one crime to preserve his status. It was like the gambling money situation all over again, using desperate measures. Feeling pity for such actions, I questioned myself, why did I marry such a man? You're a fool. Even if that was acknowledged and your sentence was lighter, you still have murder, the heaviest crime, weighing on you. Resisting is futile. Can't something be done? Give up, it's pointless. It seemed like my husband finally understood how serious and grave his crimes were. He finally stopped his futile resistance and dropped his arms weakly. Fine, lock me up, my life is over anyway. Without any resistance, my husband was led out of the interrogation room by the officers. Thank you for submitting the evidence. The officer next to me said as he opened the door to lead me out. Excuse me, will there be any procedures to follow from here? If your husband files a claim regarding the inheritance, it might go to court. But if not, it's our job here, so you don't need to worry. After speaking with the officer, I went to the city hall to get a divorce form. I planned to slam it down in front of him during our visitation. After some time, during the visitation I was granted, I gave him the divorce form in the visitation room. Please fill it out.
Why? There's no need for a divorce.
Obviously, I refuse.
Why would I continue living with a murderer who killed your own parent?
You think you can continue our marriage? Of course, there's no one else in the family home. Sorry, but you can't return there either. Apart from the money, the inheritance from your mother includes the house and land. While sorting the house, I found the inheritance documents clearly stating in your mother's handwriting that the money goes to our daughter, and the house and land to me. My husband was dumbfounded upon hearing my words. Realizing he had no home to return to after his release.
Hey, you're joking, right? Make it so I can enter that house. Losing my job and having no home is too much. Please.
No, sorry, but I'll take care of the house on my own. I said, and somehow got my reluctant husband to sign the divorce form, then left the prison. Later, I suggested to my father, who has been living alone since my mother passed, to move into the inherited house. My father's legs had grown weak, and his daily life was a struggle. Our family home is very old. So it is too dangerous for my father to live in. If he lived in my husband's family home, it was closer to my apartment, so I could look after him. How about living together then? It's hard for me to live alone, and I'd be happy to have someone with me. My father's proposal made me realize something. Indeed, he is already 82 years old and has become quite elderly. I used to leave my daughter with him whenever something came up, but even that was becoming difficult. Maybe it would be better if we lived together.
You're right. I'm sorry, Dad. Let's live together. Our house is pretty run down anyway. Let's start fresh in that house.
And so, we decided to move on by canceling our apartment lease, renovating the in-laws' house into accessibility home considering my father, and relocating there. It was during the move. Hello, you're jolly, right? This is the smartphone Mrs. Morgan left with me. I kept thinking I needed to return it but never found the chance. I was also scared and couldn't say anything at the time. I'm sorry. If I had come forward with the evidence earlier. Smith, our neighbor, came to return my mother-in-law's smartphone. Each time we talked, she cried and apologized repeatedly. When my husband committed the crime, she was too scared to do anything, but I think I also would be a same situation with her, so I never blamed her. After the move, we invited Smith over and had a lively conversation about my mother-in-law. She was really kind and did so much for us. I was so happy. Yeah, Kelly was kind and friendly to everyone. She was beloved by everyone in the neighborhood. Smith shared many stories about my mother-in-law. After a while, I had a chance to look through my mother-in-law's smartphone to cancel it. I found one unsent email. Curiosity piqued, I opened it. Inside, it read, "Just a few days after Dad passed away, I felt as if a hole had opened up in my heart. Yet, having Jolie and my granddaughter around gave me peace, and somehow, I could forget the hardships. I wished you could come live in this house, wished you could become my real daughter. But I guess that was too much to hope for. Thank you for marrying Sean." There was no more to the email. But I could sense the deep meaning behind those words. She probably wanted to live together, treating me as her real daughter. Unfortunately, her wish didn't come true. But in an unintended way, it was good that I frequently visited my in-laws' house for her sake. Still, there was something nagging at me. My husband was arrested over a money dispute, and he had killed his mother at the time she wrote this email. She couldn't have imagined such a tragedy would happen. Thank you for marrying Sean. This sentence lingers in my mind. But it's an undeniable reality, one that I have to accept. I closed the email app and placed the smartphone in front of her picture. I'll keep this smartphone as a memento. Thank you for the good home, I said. She is always in my heart. With that thought, I placed my mother-in-law's smartphone in my father-in-law's safe, intending to keep it safe as a cherished item. Afterward, I don't know what became of my husband after his release. Whether he's living as a homeless or somehow managing to work and live. As for me, I continue to live while caring for my father. I'm still working part-time, and Smith has been a great help with my father's care, which I greatly appreciate. Despite this lifestyle, I feel happier than before. I'm looking for a boyfriend, but for now, I'm focused on enjoying this life.